Okay, welcome everybody. Doing another little episode for you here, a Wednesday water cooler, if you will, a little Wednesday update as a part of the Real Estate Without Renters podcast. And I'll be putting these on the podcast forum, probably do a reshoot on some other platforms, but want to start coming to you live on Facebook every Wednesday, give you some insight as to what we're looking at and really some great opportunities in the note business. One of the things that we talked about last Wednesday is the fact that if the economy takes a turn for the worse, I can't really think of an other investment across the spectrum. Stocks, bonds, I mean, you name it, rental property, private lending. I can't think of a better place to be than the note investing. And Duane, you and I went through the last crash on that, and I mean the opportunities were crazy, right? Because there were so many problems we had solutions to.
Absolutely. First, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, man. That's right. Jump right in.
Jump right into it. Yeah, I mean, we experienced that years ago to where it was the market was just in such a in a downward way to where there was opportunity, plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, and the opportunity really is twofold, not only financially, but really helping people stay in their homes. You know, people get in bad situations, and we're starting to see those cracks once again, albeit different than last time. Last time, no equity. This time, a lot of equity for people, but the problem nonetheless being that affordability becomes an issue, and people got into loans that they ultimately may not be able to afford if inflation keeps going up and if the cost of living, of course, being a part of that. And, people have to decide where their limited monthly dollars are going to go. We've already seen credit card debt delinquencies start to reach all-time highs again. Automobiles, and the next domino to fall has traditionally always been mortgages, so we'll be able to step in and help people with that. But today I thought we would focus on another topic that we mentioned last Wednesday, which is doing a notes versus series. And I really like this because, you and I have both been involved in all sorts of areas of real estate. Gosh, myself, anything from wholesaling, flipping property, buying property, fixing it up, reselling it, rental properties, lending, putting together funds, and
Mobile home.
yeah, mobile homes. Yeah, in your case, I didn't do much on the mobile home front. Bought notes and such on it, but that's there's alternatives out there, and I think we should be aware of them. And neither you or I are anti rental property, anti
Right.
stock market. It's just
For
not
sure.
that way. I know there's other people in the industry that go, oh, notes is the only thing that you should ever do. I just don't believe that. There's still opportunity to diversify. There's still personal preferences that people have on investing. So I don't think it's a one direction, but I do think we should be aware of some of the differences.
Absolutely. I mean, I talked to a buddy of mine yesterday, Rob, and he's all over the place. He does wholesale buying, he does rehab work, he started now to get into notes and it's doing creative financing. And he said, what's your feeling on that? And I said, it's good. I think you need to be diversified in today's market, find where the opportunity is. And, to your point, we're seeing more assets come down the line in the note space. And so that excites them a little bit, but keeping all your eggs in one basket, I don't think is ever good. I think you need to be diversified.
Mhm.
And, right now with being in the note space, there is an opportunity. And, we're going to start seeing more non-performing notes come around. Not like we did back, in 08, 09, 2010, but it is starting to hit the market pretty heavy.
Yeah, and it's become more note investing has become much more note mainstream. And if you're involved in rental property, if you're involved in any kind of aspect, and you're not studying notes, you're not learning about notes. In other words, you have the blinders on with notes. You're making a big mistake because you're just limiting the amount of opportunities that you see. Because note investing also encompasses seller financing, structuring wraparound mortgages. There's so much more to it with that than just buying a single note. And if you're a real estate investor without this background, I really think you're going into your deals, with blinders on. And once you start to see all these other things that the financial side can bring to the table, it really opens up some other opportunities here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I believe we can do that.
There you go.
See if that takes hold here. Perfect. Let me, it should pop up to full size here in just a minute. I hope. There we go. Look at that. Okay, so just want to go through this series with you here. We'll put together a number of these for you, but let's talk about rental property. So first of all, rental property has been a traditional way to generate income, create wealth, for forever, right? So it's very desirable. Many people are familiar with rental property. I think because of the basic fact that, look, we've all probably been landlords or tenants at some point in time in our life. So it's an easy formula for people to understand. There's no real mystery around it versus when you talk with notes and people go, well, what's a note?
Yeah.
Everybody understands inherently what rental properties are all about. Most people get into rental property for two key reasons, right? And the two key reasons are very simple. They're looking for monthly income and they're looking for property appreciation, right? I mean, there's other aspects to it. Sure, we can talk about, tax deductions and all those sorts of things. But I would say if you boil it down, people going into rental property aren't thinking about, I'm going into this because of deductions and because of this. They're going into it because they want to generate some monthly income, passive monthly income more specifically, and they want that property appreciation, right? I mean, those are the two basic categories there. Okay. Understand that. The grant, again, I've had rental property. Duane, you've had rental property before. So yes, get it, and great way to build wealth. But you have to understand everything that comes with the monthly income and the property appreciation. That's where new investors, really don't recognize it until they get into a deal, right? They just see the big attraction there of, ooh, monthly income. I'm paying a mortgage, but somebody else is paying that for me, and the property goes up in value, and everything is just fantastic, smooth, and easy. Well, once you get into rental property, you'll find out that it comes with some baggage, right? First thing, ownership liabilities. When you own rental property, you're on the deed to that property. When you're on the deed to that property, you have ownership of that property. When you have ownership, you have liabilities and responsibilities, right? So we'll talk about the liability issue here first. Some of the ownership liabilities come with it also risk. When you own something, you take on risk, right? So if somebody gets hurt on the property and there's a lawsuit, who are they ultimately coming at? If there's damage, obviously, to the property, who's ultimately responsible to pay for that? Now, we have insurance, right? So we have insurance to cover the property liabilities. We have insurance to cover any injuries on the property with liability. So we do have some additional expenses there. But you do have to recognize you've got those liabilities as well as maintaining the property, right?
Mhm.
Every lease is going to have in there that, oh, maybe the tenant takes care of certain minor things. But other than that, you are the owner. You've got to make sure that you keep that property in good order. That's where other lawsuits come from. If there's a leaky roof and they're telling you the floor gets slippery and you just delay and try to save a couple of bucks and you don't repair it or don't repair it the right way and somebody gets hurt, you're in for you're in for a lawsuit. And yeah, hopefully you've got insurance to cover it. But when you get sued, you got to defend. And that costs a lot. That costs a lot of money. I watch, occasionally I'll watch those Judge Judy and some of
Oh my
the
goodness.
courthouse shows. Half the cases are about you put somebody on your cell phone, cell
Yeah,
phone bill, and they didn't pay. And then the other one is landlord tenant, landlord tenant, landlord. I mean, almost every freaking thing on there is landlord tenant. I mean, it's every landlord I've talked to has a story about something that came up, and
I'm surprised you say that you watch Judge Judy. My mother watches that religiously. And I'm like, what in the world are you watching? And, then it draws you in because, you hear just like what you said, somebody that is they're a property owner, and then they brought this person in of their friend, and they slipped and fell, and it's you're right. You're right.
Yeah, and you gotta prepare for that. And of course, if you look at rental property education and courses, it always tells you as you own the rental property, take a portion of that rent and put it aside, into an account for future repairs or future liabilities. But of course, nobody really does that.
Yeah,
All the money just becomes a slush fund, and that's when they realize they haven't really managed that property properly. Ownership, again, responsibilities, liabilities kind of run hand in hand there. So yeah, you are responsible as the owner of that property, upkeeping it, making sure the taxes are paid on the property, making sure that there's a accountability for you for the tenant as far as what they're paying and everything else, and having paperwork. Gosh, I mean, that's the other thing that you see on those type of courthouse shows is, well, where's the written agreement? Well, we didn't have one. It's like, oh God, it's like in real estate, just think of it this way, everybody. If it's not in writing, it's not real.
that's right.
You can do handshake deals, and as long as everybody does what they say they're going to do, fine. That's fine. But the problem is, not everybody does what they're supposed to do. And if it's
That's right.
not in writing in real estate, it simply doesn't exist. There's no oral contracts in real estate, and you can look that up. So everything's got to be written up, everything's got to be papered up. And that's where a lot of people just they don't know those responsibilities. And sure, a lot of people will hire property managers, right? And the property managers can take some of the burden of that responsibility. You're still going to pay for it, of course, but they'll make sure that, hey, the tenant said the water heater's out. Hey, the tenant said the air conditioning isn't working. It's 90 degrees. You got to get somebody out there on a Saturday. You got to get somebody out there right now. So they'll be the tip of the spear as to incoming responsibilities and collecting the rent, enforcing late payments, all these sorts of things have to be done. And if you're taking on all of that yourself, you can see where rental property, especially if you've got, not the greatest tenant or not the greatest property condition, that can be one property could become a full-time job real quick.
My sister's in the property management business, and she hears horror stories like that all the time. Clients coming in, so not only do they only manage their own portfolio, but clients come in that have smaller portfolios. Hey, as a management company, will you take care of it? Because I tried to do it on my own, and at the end of the day, it was a bigger headache. I had 6 units, and then I went to 12 units and 18 and 20 units, and it's just beyond my capability of doing that. And they let things go aside, taxes not being paid, insurance not being followed up on, and they just didn't want that liability, and so they take on new clients all the time. So definitely important, definitely.
Yeah, and I've had some tenants in the past that they're great. Never hear
Yeah,
from, check comes in,
yeah.
fantastic, great. But then, sure, I also have the story of the tenant who late from day one, repainted the interior house without my permission, just some kind of crazy colors. Just move out in the middle of
Dog
the
ate my
night.
checkbook. Dog ate my checkbook, and I wasn't able to send you a payment.
Yeah. So again, it can become a really big issue in somebody's life when you start to manage these things yourself. But even outsourcing it, a lot of landlords that convert over to note investors, I hear it all the time. They go, "Yeah, I had property managers in place, but they were calling me all the time."
Mm-hmm.
You start having 6, 7, 8 properties, like you were saying, and yeah, you got a property manager in place, but the property manager has to notify you if expenses are over $500 or $1,000 or whatever kind
Absolutely.
of agreement you have
Absolutely.
with them. But it's constantly like, hey, it's like, oh man, it can just really, really become a big liability. Cash flow, appreciation, got it, but this is part of the price you pay for it. The
Yeah.
other place where a lot of people mess up on rental property is legal procedures, going from writing a lease the right way, how to handle security deposits, if a tenant is late, how to send that paperwork and make sure that it's done on a timely basis. If you have to evict somebody, there's procedures, and those procedures change by state. They change all the time. I mean, just recently, and I don't have a list of them, but just read the news in general. My goodness, some of the new laws that are coming out almost seem to be anti-landlord and pro-tenant. You know, they're
Hmm.
just giving them all the room in the world, and they have the right to not pay if you didn't do this, that, or the other. They have You can't evict them if you didn't file this paperwork properly on time. You know, there's a lot of legal procedures that need to be done. And again, this is where you want to enlist the help of a competent property manager. And I'll tell you, there's property management that's inexpensive, and sometimes you pay what you get for. You know, and there's
Absolutely.
property management that's a little more expensive. And again, everybody looks at monthly cash flow, and they'll want to have that coming in, and property management starts to cut into that. But I'm telling you, don't skip out on good property management, because what you'll find is if things aren't done the wrong way, if things are done the wrong way, trying to get somebody out of that property might be more than you bargained for financially and time wise.
Yeah, tenants definitely have the right. I know when I had my mobile homes, if they didn't pay, 30 days, 60 day, and then you take them to court, and the judge says, oh, well, as long as they make a payment on the 90th day, then they'd make one payment, and then they're still 60 days behind on getting my payment. And hey, tenants have rights. And a lot of
Yeah.
people think just because I own a property, I'm going to get my check every single month, and it doesn't work that way.
And sometimes the tenants know more about the legal procedures than,
Absolutely.
than the
Yeah.
landlord.
Yeah.
They've been
You
down
go to
that road
court.
before. And they go, "Oh, I know exactly how this works." And
Yeah, I
you're right.
would go to court, and then the tenant would be there in court and says, "Okay, well, I got 1 month. Okay, dismiss." They made one payment in 90 days, and they're
Yeah,
still 60 days behind.
yeah, that is true. A lot of
They
them
know
do.
the system.
Yeah, they know it, and they work it to their advantage. And again, the leniency that we're seeing today, um,
And we're not saying
rent's
this
too
is
damn high and
with
all that
every
kind of
situation.
stuff. What's
Yeah, we're
that?
not saying this is every situation. I mean, they're just stories that happen, and like what you're saying. I mean, you got to be careful. Got to be
Yeah.
careful.
Like I said, I've had good tenants, and that you never hear from. That's ultimately what you're looking to do. And of
Yeah,
course, qualifying
that's
tenants the right
impossible.
way, but it just it's not going to be perfect. And you will have ongoing expenses. And always best to have that little separate account that you take part of that monthly cash flow, you put away for future expenses, because they're coming. People are living in a house, and there's appliances that are going to go out, minor ones and major ones. There's going to be structural things, that eventually happen. There's going to be storms. There's going to be leaks. Things happen. Home ownership, even, get away from rental property for a second, but just think even in your own home. I mean, you've got ongoing expenses, and now shift that to rental property where you own another property that somebody's living in with the mentality that this is not their house. They're here temporarily. There's less of an aspect of caring, for that house and doing some of the things that you would do in your own home. So there's going to be wear and tear, and that's going to be ongoing expenses that you're going to need to be prepared for. So taking it out of that cash flow, is an important thing to do. And as
I
far as
don't, I don't know if you've been down to your local Home Depot, but it hadn't gotten any cheaper.
No, it's yeah, you're right. It's funny. I just read, because Home
Expensive.
Depot is kind of a monitor of one of the stocks that people look at, like how's the economy going.
Sure.
And when Home Depot stock is going up, people are renovating properties and getting busy. Right now, Home Depot is just the opposite, because things are more expensive and people are tighter with their money, and they're not looking so much on home improvement right now, because that's an additional expense. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Um, Cash flow. I've said this for a long time. Every rental property will cash flow. Every single one of them will cash flow. There's either a plus sign or a negative sign,
Yeah.
in front of it. You either have positive cash flow or negative cash flow, but it will cash flow. Now, most rental property today, absolutely positive cash flow, because rents are up. Rents are more expensive these days, and therefore the gap between covering your costs your debt service, your liabilities, your management, all those sorts of things. Typically, in most rental properties, I think positive cash flow, very good. What's going to happen in the future? Again, if tenants aren't able to make the payments, those sorts of things, that cash flow can be cut off pretty quick. It can go down if your expenses go up, if you're paying more for Home Depot and other things to get done, or you've had a long-term rental property and now you got to get that roof done. It can be quite expensive. And now insurance, I don't know what's going up in the Carolinas, where you are, Duane, but down here in Florida, property insurance is just unbelievable. I mean, it's just going up and up and up. And a lot of landlords are being strapped by this new insurance because it's directly impacting their positive part of the cash flow there.
Yeah, I mean, it is just like, again, I had a long conversation with my buddy Rob yesterday, and he was talking about the same thing. They own a lot of property, and it's just crazy, the prices that are going up, to go reflect back on, ongoing expenses. He was telling me, man, it's endless of the expenses that they're going through with tenants and rehab costs and everything. And so that's why they're really considering. And he, over the years we've talked, oh no, I'm good with this, I'm good with this. Now he's starting to change, a little bit more of, hey, we want to get in more into seller financing and buying some assets on the note space, and try and start swinging over a little bit onto this space. And he said, man, I could see a lot less headache.
Yeah. Well, the light at the end of the tunnel with all this potential headaches here, right? And their potential is property appreciation. They're looking at the end of the day, 10 years down the road, the property is going to be worth substantially more money. And in most cases, I would say you're right. There are, of course, cases where the market just went the other way, and people were forced to sell properties with no equity, or struggle quite a bit to see that equity come back and have to change their plans and own a property a little bit longer, perhaps than they anticipated. So property appreciation is not guaranteed. Historically, it's always positive, in the United States, but it's the timing in between. You can look at historic data and say, well, yeah, property values have continued to go up X% on a regular basis every year, sometimes more, sometimes less, but the general trend has always been bend up. And I agree with that, but the appreciation is a great thing at the end. Of course, you have to pay, taxes on that, but a reduced rate for that capital gains tax. So that is one of the very good benefits of owning and going through these potential hassles with this, is that long-term, planning, where you're going, yeah, but at the end of the day, this house is going to be worth substantially more money, and I can sell it, as a loaded rental property, or I could just, stop the leases on it and turn around and sell the property, whatever they wanted to do. So that certainly is a great aspect to this, and one that is earned, I would say, by all these other potential issues down the road. But for some people, that's not something that they're looking for down the road. They're interested in other attributes here as well. So if we switch our conversation then away from a rental property to a note owner, what are some of the similarities? So I'm just going to use the same screen setup that we had for the rental property owner and switch over to the note owner here. So with the note owner, we do not own the property. So we don't get the property appreciation, for sure, because we don't own the property. We simply own the debt on the property. We're the bank, if you will. When you own your own home, even, or a rental property, and the property goes up in value, and when you sell it, if there's still a loan, you pay the loan off, but you're entitled to the equity, right? The bank doesn't own your property. It simply has a claim on it, a financial claim in the name of a lien on that property. So we don't get the appreciation of the property, but we also don't have the liabilities because we don't own the property. And same thing, if somebody gets hurt on your property, right, tenant slips and falls or what have you, there's potential liability there. And again, hopefully you have layers of protection. You've got homeowners insurance, probably an umbrella liability insurance for your business as well, and you're going to be covered on that. But certainly a note owner is further removed because the note owner is the bank. If somebody slips and falls at your property, you're not suing Wells Fargo or Bank of America. They don't own the property. They simply have a lien on the property. So we are removed from that liability. So a lot of people, especially older investors, they start to think about that. And that's why I think you see some of these older landlords start to say, well, why don't I take my rental property, convert them to owners at this point in time through seller financing, and therefore I can remove myself from potential liability, right? And
Yes.
also potential ownership responsibilities, right? So don't call me when the water heater's not working. Don't call me when the roof is leaking. I'm the bank. So when you're the note owner, again, you're the bank. It removes you from any ownership liabilities or responsibilities on that property. The borrower is responsible for that because the borrower is on the title. Therefore, they've got the liability, they've got the responsibility. Now, the cool thing on the insurance end for us is, by the way, as far as property insurance goes, as a lien holder, we are also put on the homeowner's policy. And we can dictate through contracts how much insurance the homeowner needs to have, how much liability, how much hazard insurance they need to have, because the property, although we don't own it, is our collateral. And therefore, if we're going to lend them money, we can put conditions upon how we will lend that money. So we can make sure that they have a certain amount of insurance. And guess what? If they don't, there's penalties for that. You could potentially foreclose on somebody because they don't have the collateral insured. You could potentially foreclose on somebody because they're not paying the property taxes. You could even potentially foreclose on somebody if they're not maintaining the property, because the property is the collateral. So when someone borrows money, whether that's from a bank or from an individual note owner, well, guess what? They have to live to those conditions or there's repercussions. So it puts us in a very nice position. Sorry, you were going to say something, Duane?
No, I said absolutely. I was agreeing with you. Yeah.
Gotcha. Legal procedures. Now, legal procedures are a potential for everything. So that's going to be consistent. Do we have potential legal procedures when we're note owners? Sure. If they stop making payments, we might have to at least threaten foreclosure. We might have to go down the road of foreclosure. Unfortunately, what happens sometimes is when people are late on payments and they just can't afford it, instead of reaching out to the lender or answering the lender's phone calls and mail, they hide. They kind of retreat and they go, I don't want to talk to anybody. It's embarrassing. It's not something you want to admit. I think that's a part of it. But it's also people don't know what to do. They don't want to lose their home, so they don't want to get on the phone and talk with somebody. So they just kind of go, let's just delay it and ignore it, and we'll try to figure it out. But that becomes a problem because that 90-day mark, which is when the loan kicks over to what's called seriously delinquent, that's when all these legal procedures can come in. So we might have to foreclose on somebody or at least threaten to foreclose. And a lot of times we'll threaten to foreclose, that gets the conversation engaged, then we can do some kind of loan modification and work out. So legal procedures are going to be a common denominator with both of them. You're not really ultimately going to get away from any legal procedures as a note owner versus a property owner. They're just slightly different in what those legal procedures are. Okay. And we also have, for those not familiar with the industry, we don't own the property, so we don't have property management companies, but we do have note servicing companies. So the note servicing companies, which are way less expensive than property management, we're talking $15 a month, possibly up to $30 a month if there's escrow involved, but they're the ones who are going to collect the payments. They're the ones who are going to reach out to the borrower by mail or by phone if they're 30 days late, 15 days late, 60 days late, 90 days late. They're going to be the ones that are reaching out to that delinquent borrower if that were to arise. So much more reasonable cost if we just flat out compared that to property management, because there's a lot less moving parts here. They're simply collecting the money, accounting for the money, taking out their 15 or 30 bucks and sending you the rest of the money. Tenant issues. Well, we don't have tenants. We might have done a loan as a note owner or bought a loan as a note owner on a tenant occupied property, but that's not our tenant. That's the landlord's tenant. The landlord is paying us, the bank, right? So the tenant is paying $1,000 a month. The debt service on the loan, which is the note that we bought, is maybe $500 a month. So we're getting the $500 a month, whether that rent's coming in or not from the landlord, but the landlord's still dealing with all the tenant issues. We're removed from that. In fact, I like buying tenant occupied notes, you know, rental property, whether it's a single family home or duplex or quad or whatever it is, because typically, you know, the rent is much higher than the debt service coming in. So we feel good in fact that, hey, they've got tenants, even if they have, if they lose some of the occupancy, there still should be enough cash flow to pay the debt service, which is paying the note, which is what we're looking at.
Yep.
Yep. Let's see, ongoing expenses. Again, ongoing expenses as far as owning the home is always a constant for the landlord, right? The rental property owner, because again, there's going to be wear and tear on the property, and it just happens. And those are much more regular ongoing expenses. We don't have those ongoing expenses on the property because again, we don't own the property. We're removed from that. We're just the bank. So we don't have any of those unknown pop-up ongoing expenses. We have very set and known expenses. Even if somebody is late on on payments, at some point in time, if we have to foreclose, we already know because we've done our research what it would cost us to have to foreclose. But we'll also see a 3-month window before we know that expense is coming. So our expenses are much more predictable than a property owner, because with the property owner, you have no idea what's going to happen on any given day. So much easier on the note owner not to have that concern of monthly ongoing kind of expenses. Ours are very controlled, very predictable in our industry because we're removed from that. And what are we left with? The cash flow. And we get the cash flow every month without all of these other issues. And I think for a lot of investors, that becomes an attraction, and they're less concerned about property appreciation down the road. They're investing in these in their retirement accounts. They're investing to these in their business accounts, personal accounts, for that monthly passive cash flow without all these other issues, because they want to travel. They want to be able to go where they go and be able to just look at their accounts on their computer. In fact, we buy notes through our computer, so you can even buy these assets. You know, a rental property owner, they've got to look at the properties, they got to do walkthroughs, they typically have to renovate the properties, all that sort of stuff. Note owners, we're on our computer, we're looking at inventory on our computer, buying through our computer, going into, once we own a note, going into our computer and seeing what all the cash flow is, any comments if a payment's been late or anything like that. Of course, we collect late fees as a part of that as well. So much, much, much easier to run, to manage, to have, without always thinking about, well, gosh, am I going to have other expenses? Am I going to have other liabilities and responsibilities to take care of this property? That's all gone. And if the trade-off is we don't have the appreciation of a property down the road, we're okay with that.
Yeah, so I'll make comment, piggybacking on what I said last week. You know, all the students that I talk to, the biggest thing that they come to me and saying, I don't want to have to work so daggone hard. You know, I want it to be easy. I want to be able to travel. We're in our, 60s and 70s, and I don't want to have to run across town meeting contractors, making sure that I'm getting with my realtor or property management company. And it's so much, it's such a headache making sure everything lines up versus, hey, we can travel, we can do this from our home. I don't have to be on a time schedule to where I'm able to have this cash flow coming in and not have to work so hard.
Yeah, and the younger generation is that way now too.
I'm seeing that more.
Oh,
You
they
know,
want to
you and I
travel. They
both are.
want to, remote. I mean, look what happened with, remote working. I mean, people want that that freedom. And, so imagine you have your regular job and maybe you're working remotely, and now you have a tangible asset. Because the other thing, when you own these notes, you own long-term cash flow. You might own a 20-year income stream. Okay. But that income stream coming in every month, very passive, you're traveling. At some point in time, maybe you need a lump sum. And here's another thing that's different with rental property and notes. With rental property, if you do sell the property, you're going to cash out on that appreciation. You can sell that property one time. That's it, right? You own the property, you sold it, you captured that equity that you gained through the appreciation process. What a lot of people don't realize is with a note, with a 20-year note, you could sell that 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. Now, how the heck does that work?
Right.
Because we can sell any period of time. If we have a 20-year income stream, okay, represented just for easy math, $1,000 a month is our income stream for the next 20 years, okay, 240 months. I could turn around and sell if I needed to raise some capital. I could turn around and sell the next 5 years worth of payments to another investor. I get a lump sum. They collect the payments for the next 5 years. After they collect the 60th payment, I get the payments back again and can enjoy that income stream. Maybe I sell 10 years worth of payments. How much money do I need? How many payments do I need to sell to get that money? But I could sell 5 years, get the notes back, and get the note back because the investor's already been received their 60th payment. And then I go, I'll sell it again to somebody else. I'll sell another 5 years. Right? So I could do that multiple times. And what you'll find when you run the numbers, and I encourage you to, go check out our website. You can go to kevinshortell.com. You can go to YouTube and see a lot of videos on there. And bottom line is you'll see how you can make this monthly cash flow without all the hassles and potential liabilities. But we have such a liquid market with these notes that this whole concept of property appreciation, you can buy a whole note and sell half of it for more money than you paid for the whole note. Okay, think about that. You can buy a whole note and sell half of it to another investor for more than you paid for the whole note. So imagine you invest in something, you get all your money back. They receive half of the payments. In my example, I'll stick with 20 years. They receive all the payments for 10 years. And then guess what? You get the note back, or the note pays off early. We can go into some other. So in a way, do we have appreciation? Kind of, but it's a little different aspect to that. But that whole concept of being able to buy a property, sell it once versus buy a note, sell it multiple times, pretty impactful.
I want to go back on the ease of the business of time wise and talk about, with talking to potential clients, they say, oh, well, again, all the time that I have running around. And I say, well, look at it this way. You get up 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're wide awake, sometimes like I am, you can get on your computer and you can go look at assets. You're not really going to get in your car and drive around town or go into any listings that you have looking at property at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I just find that it's easier. And again, it's just the flexibility that you have more with notes, and being able to analyze these deals and determine what's going to work best for you.
Yeah, 100%. As you know, I spend most of my days, probably 4 hours or so every day, working with clients and looking at deals. Just sharing a screen, going through Zoom, showing them the sources, and going through deals, and they end up, getting further information and buying right from there. Yeah, so it's definitely a lot of less wear and tear on the buy side as well. All right. Well, I think we've gone a pretty good amount of time here. I thought that was good. I hope
Yeah.
that was enlightening to everybody. And again, not bashing rental property. It's a great way to make money. Just understand, comes with this, compare that to notes and make an educated decision on that. And if you're a landlord who already owns rental property, heck, maybe you consider taking half of your rental properties and converting them over to to homeowners, and you stepping into that role of note owner, and take a little bit less of the obligations and responsibilities that you have. So we will do this again next Wednesday. We're going to try to do these around 9:30 every Wednesday morning. So stay tuned for that. We've got several more of these notes versus series that I want to put together here. And if you have anything that you would like us to cover, go ahead and through social media, just let us know. Make a comment in there, let us know, and we'll follow up on that and be glad to talk about some of these other topics that you may have an interest in as well. I got my tip of the days you can also look at on social media, including above and beyond Facebook. We're on Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn, all those sorts of things. So you can find us there. Get the book, Real Estate Without Renters. You can get on Amazon. And we're also currently running an ad on social media for a really, really good 4-hour series. Duane was on there with me the whole time. 2 hours of performing notes, 2 hours of not performing notes for $49. I mean, if you're have any interest in note investing,
They'll spend more of that on dinner tonight than they, great information for sure.
Yeah, you got that right. And it's divided into 4 videos, and it's really, really good. Details, real deals, even showing you some of the sources. So if you're interested in that, track us down on social media and pick up that program before it goes away. All right, that's all I got. Duane, you got anything else?
No, I'm busy day, a lot of contacts that I have to follow up on today. So again, any questions, reach out to go to the website, check out Kevin's tip of the day, and we'll see you again next week.
Sounds good. See you.